Hello, hello. I'm going to read from the Writer's Almanac, Garrison Keillor's Writer's Almanac. And I love the Writer's Almanac. And it's wonderful poetry. I don't get a chance to read very much poetry. I've missed my relationship with poetry, and this kind of forces me to have it. I do have to rethink what I'm doing with this thing because I'm not doing enough script reading. I'm doing a lot of just reading, and I think that that's good to a point, but I want to read more scripty stuff. Anyway, let's do this. This is the Writer's Almanac for Tuesday, the 24th of January, 2012. Garrison Keillor's wonderful 5 minute or so radio show. It is the birthday of novelist Edith Wharton, born Edith Newbolt Jones in New York City. The Joneses were wealthy New York society folk. That's where this expression, keeping up with the Joneses, comes from. They were so alarmed by their little girl they didn't know what to do. She was precocious, she taught herself to read, and she wrote her first novel on brown wrapping paper when she was 11 years old. When Wharton was 14, she wrote her second novel called Fast and Loose, a parody of British romances. When she was 18, 5 of her poems were published anonymously in the Atlantic Monthly. But then, at age 18, she stopped writing for almost 10 years. Instead, she lived the life of a rich young lady, first as a debutante, then as a young wife married to Teddy Wharton, a wealthy man who had almost nothing in common with her. She loved motor cars, especially fast ones. She loved dogs, especially small ones. She liked to knit, and she was passionate about design, and she loathed the Victorian style she had grown up with, which was cluttered, dark, heavy drapes and fancy upholstered furniture. And she loved to write. In 1905, she published The House of Mirth, the story of the socialite Lily Bart, raised as a proper young woman without any job skills. And so after her parents' death, her only hope was to marry a rich man, but she couldn't bring herself to marry someone she didn't love, and because of this, she ends up friendless and poor. It's a tragic story, and it was the best-selling book of the year. Edith Wharton went on to write more popular novels, including Ethan Frome in 1911 and The Age of Innocence in 1920. It was on this day in 1848 that the California gold rush began. Carpenter and wheelwright James Marshall was leading a crew to build a sawmill for a man named John Sutter, who owned nearly 50,000 acres land along the Sacramento River and wanted to start a logging operation there. It was a cold, clear morning. The night before, Marshall had diverted the river so he could put in the sawmill, and on the morning, he saw gold flecks where the water had been. Sutter asked the workers to keep their discovery a secret so he could continue on with his sawmill. But the story came out in the March 15th issue of the Californian out of San Francisco, and on August 19th, the New York Herald reported that there was gold in them there hills, and gold prospectors headed to California. The population of California at that time was 150,000 Indians and about 14,000 non-humans. 12 years about 14,000 Klingons, 14,000 non-Indians. So 150,000 Indians and 14,000 non-Indians. That was in 1848. 12 years later, in 1860, there were more than 300,000 non-Indians and fewer than 30,000 Indians. Mark Twain headed to California in 1861 and spent some time in prospecting in the Angels camp, trying to make his fortune, but he didn't find anything in the way of gold. He did, however, hear a man tell a story about a frog and how they filled that frog with buckshot so he couldn't jump, and so he lost his owner a bet. That story was the celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County, the story that made Mark Twain famous. Here is a poem by Joyce Sutphen, um, who is the poet laureate of the state of Minnesota. She's the state's second laureate. And she also serves as a professor of English at Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter, Minnesota. The name of the poem by Joyce Sutphen is Silo Solo. My father climbs into the silo. He has come rung by rung up the wooden trail that scales that tall belly of cement. It's winter, 20 below zero. He can hear the wind overhead. The silage beneath his boots is so frozen, there is no smell. My father takes up a pickaxe and chops away a layer of silage. He works neatly counterclockwise under a yellow light, then lifts the chunks with a pitchfork and throws them down the chute. They break as they fall and rattle far below. His breath comes out in clouds. His fingers begin to ache, but he skims off another layer where the frost is forming and begins to sing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Silo Solo by Joyce Sutphen from First Words, published by Red Dragonfly Press, 2010, reprinted for permission for Writer's Almanac. Production credits are: the host is Garrison Keeler, the writers are Betsy Allister, Priscilla Kinter, Heather McPherson, and Holly Vanderhaar. The technical director is Thomas Schweitzger, the engineer Noah Smith. Coordinator Nick Vedder, and permissions were obtained by Miss Kathy Roach. As Garrison Keeler always says, be well, do good work, and